Chapter 1. The first time Clara notices the crack in the conservatory glass, it's spring. She's pruning the Rosa Aiden hybrids, her gloves damp with dew, when a flicker of light catches her eye, a hairline fracture near the ceiling, where the panes meet. It's minor, the kind of flaw only someone who's memorized every inch of this place would see. She traces it with her gaze, wondering how long it's been there. A month? A year? Time has a way of blurring behind glass. The roses, at least, are thriving. Their petals blush pink at the edges, ivory at the throat, as if blushing at their own perfection. Clara knows these flowers intimately, the way their thorns curve like commas, the velvet weight of a bud just before it splits open. She's spent years coaxing them to life, amending soil, calibrating humidity. Elias called the conservatory her vanity project. When they married, a frivolous counterpart to his boardrooms and spreadsheets. But Clara understood what he didn't. Glass is fragile, but roots are not. By midday, the air thickens with the scent of hyacinth and privilege. The estate hums with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine, maids polishing silver, gardeners trimming hedges into geometric submission, the distant clatter of a chef preparing Elias's post-gym smoothie. Clara's phone buzzes in her pocket. A text from Elias: "Lila will join us for the gala. Confirm her +1. The name lodges in her throat. Lila. A stylist, Elias mentioned once, hired to refresh his public image. Clara pictures someone angular, all clattering bracelets and unsparing laughter. She deletes the notification without replying. Mira, their 5-year-old daughter, finds her minutes later, cheeks flushed from chasing butterflies. "Look, Mama." She holds out a fistful of dandelions, their stems crumpled from her grip. Clara kneels, smoothing the girl's flyaway curls. "Beautiful," she says, and means it. Mira's joy is a thing uncontained, uncalculated, a language Elias has never learned. The gala arrives with the first heat wave of summer. Clara dresses in a gown the color of black pearls, its bodice studded with seed pearls that dig into her ribs. The locket Elias gave her on their 5th anniversary hangs heavy between her breasts, its hinge still stiff from disuse. She hasn't added a photo to it, couldn't choose which version of herself to preserve, she thinks, fastening the clasp. The ballroom is a cacophony of champagne flutes and forced laughter. Clara navigates the crowd, her smile a practiced curve, while Elias holds court by the fireplace. He's magnetic tonight, all sharp wit and calculated charm, Lila orbiting him like a satellite. Clara studies her younger than expected, with a laugh that rings too bright too often. Her dress is a slash of emerald against the room's muted tones, her perfume something citrusy and invasive. When Elias catches Clara's eye, he tilts his head, a gesture that once signaled affection, now merely transactional. Later, he mouths, and she nods, her fingers tightening around her wineglass. Later comes at 1:17 a.m., in the master bedroom's marble chill. Elias stands by the window, his tuxedo jacket slung over a chair. "You noticed the new stylist," he says, not a question. Clara unzips her dress slowly, the fabric pooling at her feet. "She's lovely," she says, her voice steady. "Very on brand." Elias's reflection frowns. "This isn't a game, Clara. The board thinks I'm soft, Lila's strategic." Strategic. She steps out of the dress, her slip translucent under the moonlight. How novel. A woman as a strategic asset. He turns, finally, his expression a mix of irritation and something colder. "Don't be naive. You knew what this marriage required." She does. She's known for years how he compartmentalizes, how he equates vulnerability with weakness. But tonight, the knowledge tastes different, metallic. She thinks of Mira's dandelions, how they thrive in cracks, how they refuse to be ornamental. The next morning, Clara wakes to an empty bed, and a text from Elias's assistant: "Lila will accompany Mr. Hartwell to the Hamptons this weekend. You and Mira will remain in the city." She deletes it, then opens Mira's bedroom curtains. Sunlight spills over the girl's dinosaur pajamas, her breath fogging the glass as she presses against the window. When's Daddy coming home? Clara smooths the comforter, her hands lingering on the fabric's embroidered vines. Soon, she lies. July bleeds into August. Clara spends mornings in the conservatory, cataloging blooms, and pretending not to notice the staff's sidelong glances. Lila's presence is a slow seep, her toiletries in the guest en suite, her voice echoing down hallways, her name cropping up in Elias's calls, clipped and urgent. One afternoon, Clara finds a vase of white lilies in the foyer. They're overripe, their scent cloying, petals bruised at the edges. She leaves them there, a funeral arrangement for something not yet dead. The fracture in the conservatory glass widens. Clara notices it after a storm, rainwater pooling on the floor beneath the crack. She mops it up, her reflection fractured in the puddle. Later, she Googles glass repair on her phone, but the search history vanishes. Elias's firewall, no doubt. When she confronts him, it's over espresso cups in the breakfast nook. The conservatory's damaged, she says. He doesn't look up from his tablet. Have maintenance handle it. They can't. The glass is custom. Elias sighs, a sound of infinite patience. Then replace it, charge it to the household account. She sets her cup down, the porcelain clinking like a death knell. It's not about the cost. It's about Clara. His tone shifts, icy now. I don't have time for this. The final blow comes in September, though Clara sees it coming like a slow-motion collision. She's in Mira's room, helping her glue glitter to a papier-mâché sun, when Elias's text arrives. We need to talk. The study is dim, the air conditioner humming against the late summer heat. Elias sits behind his desk, a folder open in front of him, a legal document. She realizes with a chill. I'm filing for divorce, he says, as if announcing a stock dip. Lila's pregnant. The words hang in the air. Clara focuses on the desk's grain, the way the wood swirls like storm clouds. And you'll need to leave. Discreetly. There's a settlement. She laughs, a short sharp sound. How generous. A payoff to match the prenup. Don't be dramatic, you'll have the penthouse. A monthly allowance. Mira stays with me, of course. Of course. Her vision blurs. She thinks of the conservatory's roses, how they'd wither without her, how the glass would fog, then frost, then shatter. That night, she packs 2 suitcases. Mira's dinosaur pajamas, the photo albums Elias never looks at, the Rosa Eden cutting she'd smuggled into a pot weeks earlier. The locket stays on the nightstand, its empty chamber a silent accusation. As the car pulls away at dawn, Clara presses her forehead to the window. The estate shrinks in the rear view, its windows glinting like eyes. Mira sleeps against her shoulder, thumb in her mouth, a habit she'd outgrown years ago. They're halfway down the driveway, when Clara glimpses movement in the conservatory, a figure pausing at the glass. Elias perhaps, or Lila. She'll never know. The car turns the bend, and the estate vanishes, leaving only the rose cutting on her lap, its thorns digging into her palm like a promise. Chapter 2. The cottage smells of salt and mildew when they arrive. Clara balances Mira on her hip as she shoulders the door open, the wood swollen from autumn storms. The realtor called it charming. But the truth is in the details, peeling blue shutters, floorboards that groan like old bones, a fireplace choked with ash. Mira wriggles free, her sneakers thudding onto warped planks. Can I pick my room? She asks, already darting down the hall. Clara sets the suitcases down, her palms damp. Through the grimy window, the ocean glints, a relentless silver expanse. She thinks of the conservatory's controlled climate, how the roses there never trembled in the wind. The diner is a 10-minute walk, past fishermen mending nets and gulls squabbling over crab guts. Clara's first shift starts at 5 a.m. The manager, a woman named June with a voice like gravel, hands her an apron. You're replacing Daryl, she says, eyeing Clara's blazer and slacks. He OD'd in the parking lot last Tuesday. The coffee urns scald her fingertips. Orders come rapid fire. 2 eggs over hard, hash browns crispy, pancakes, no syrup, bacon well done, darlin', none of that floppy city shit. Clara learns to tune out the clatter, the customers' sidelong glances at her polished accent. By noon, her blazer is stained with ketchup and regret. Mira waits at the counter, swinging her legs. "You look funny in that hat," she giggles, pointing at Clara's paper cap. Clara laughs, the sound raw but genuine. October brings gales that rattle the cottage's windows. Clara tucks the Rosa Aiden cutting into a south-facing windowsill, its pot wrapped in burlap against the chill. The plant droops, leaves mottled with mildew. "You're not in Kansas anymore," she mutters, pruning the dead growth. Mira presses a band-aid on Clara's thumb, where a thorn drew blood. "Does it hurt?" "Only a little." The lie tastes familiar. Mira's first day at the coastal elementary school is a study in contrasts. Her uniform, a hand-me-down from June's niece, smells of mothballs. The other children eye her Velcro shoes, her lunchbox stuffed with diner leftovers. That night, she burrows into Clara's bed, trembling. "They said I talk weird." Clara strokes her hair, the strands gritty with sand. "You don't talk weird, you talk like you." "But Daddy says." "Daddy's not here," Clara says, sharper than intended. Guilt lodges in her throat. She softens her voice. "We're writing a new story, remember?" Mira nods, her breath evening into sleep. Clara traces the seashell pendant June gifted her, a spiral of pink-lined coral, thinking of the empty locket buried in a landfill somewhere. Winter arrives with a vengeance. The diner's heat sputters, leaving Clara's fingers numb as she scrubs tables. At night, she journals by flashlight, chronicling Mira's milestones in looping script. First friend Lila, no relation, likes dinosaurs too. First snowball fight, she cheated, stuffed snow down my collar. First word spelled correctly, M-A-M-A. The rose against all odds, blooms, a single flower, paler than its kin back at the estate, but resilient. Clara presses its petals between dictionary pages, a testament. News of Elias filters in like sediment. A regular customer, a retired accountant, slaps the paper down beside her booth. Hartwell Industries tanked, stocks in the toilet. The headline blares, tech mogul's empire crumbles amid scandal. Clara sips her black coffee, the bitterness grounding her. She pictures Lila now, pregnant, perhaps, her emerald dress replaced by maternity wear, her laughter strained as the tabloids circle. "What did you expect?" Clara thinks, not unkindly. "You married a man who confuses love with leverage." That night, she digs her wedding ring from the bottom of a suitcase. The band is cold as a corpse's finger. She walks to the shore, waves clawing at her ankles as she hurls it into the surf. The tide swallows it whole. Christmas passes quietly. June gifts them a turkey dinner. Mira decorates a driftwood tree with seashells and fishing line. Clara hangs the Rosa Aiden petals from the ceiling, their dried forms casting shadows like stained glass. On New Year's Eve, the town gathers at the pier. Fireworks fracture the sky, their reflections dancing on the water. Mira dozes against Clara's shoulder, smelling of cocoa and salt air. Clara thinks of the conservatory's shattered glass, the roses choking on neglect. "Let it burn," she thinks. "Let it all burn." Spring hesitates, then arrives. The rose cutting sprouts new leaves, glossy and defiant. Clara's hands, once softened by luxury creams, are calloused from dish soap and pruning shears. She gardens in the pre-dawn light, coaxing lupines and thrift plants from the stubborn soil. Mira, now 6, trails her, clutching a plastic shovel. "Can we plant a secret garden?" "We already are," Clara says, covering the girl's mittened hand with her own. The final scene unfolds on a rain-slick morning. Clara kneels in the mud, transplanting seedlings, when Mira bursts from the cottage waving a letter. It's from Daddy. Clara's pulse stutters. The envelope is thick, embossed with Elias's crest. She tears it open, scanning the lines. "I'm dying. Pancreatic cancer." Mira deserves closure. The paper flutters to the ground. Rain pools in the ink, blurring the words. Mira's eyes are wide, trusting. "Are we going?" Clara thinks of the diner's fryer grease, the rose's stubborn bloom, the seashell pendant warm beneath her collar. She crumples the letter, tucking it into her pocket. "No," she says, her voice steady as tides. "We're staying right here." Mira nods, unbothered, and returns to digging. Clara watches her, a fistful of roots in her hand, and breathes in the salt-stung air. The storm passes. The garden, as always, remains. Chapter 3. The city is all concrete and exhaust when Clara steps off the bus, Mira's college brochure crumpled in her hand. It's been a decade since she last walked these streets. The air tastes different now. Metallic, like the tang of a healing wound. She pauses at the corner of 5th and Mercer, where a homeless man's radio bleats static warped jazz. A billboard looms overhead, Hartwell Tower, luxury reimagined. The building is skeletal cranes idle against the gray sky. Clara's phone buzzes. A text from her foreman. Client approved the lavender hedge. Want you on site tomorrow. She smiles, the kind that reaches her eyes. Her landscaping business, Root and Stem, has become a quiet empire of its own. Native grasses reclaiming parking lots. Rooftop gardens blooming over subway grates. She's learned to read soil like a language, to coax life from neglect. The park commissioner's office smells of mildew and ambition. Clara smooths her blazer, a thrift store find, tailored to precision, and spreads her sketches across the desk. The Hartwell site, she says, tapping the blueprint. I want to plant perennials, lavender, sage, maybe a grove of serviceberry trees, something that outlives trends. The commissioner, a man with a handshake like a dead fish, squints at her. You're aware of the history here? Vaguely. She doesn't mention the conservatory roses, the locket, the ring swallowed by the sea. He shrugs. Your call, just keep the budget under $1 million. Work begins in April. Clara spends mornings ankle deep in mud, directing crews as backhoes chew up asphalt. The site is a graveyard of shattered glass and rebar, remnants of Elias's failed luxury condos. She finds a marble tile half buried in debris, its surface etched with the Hartwell crest. It joins the lavender in the compost pile. Mira visits on weekends, her nose buried in a sociology textbook. You're romanticizing this, she says, watching Clara prune a rosebush. Ruins and rebirth, very poetic. Clara snorts. Someone has to clean up the messes men leave behind. Mira studies her, a smirk playing on her lips. You're kind of badass, Mom. The first Rosa Eden blooms in June, its petals flushed pink against the city's grime. Clara kneels in the mulch, dirt under her nails, when a voice cuts through the hum of traffic. Fancy seeing you here. She doesn't need to turn. The cadence is familiar, slick, entitled. Garrett, Elias's former CFO, a man who once dismissed her as the help. He reeks of bourbon and regret. Clara Hartwell, he drawls. Or is it Voss? Clara Voss. She rises, wiping her hands on her jeans. What do you want, Garrett? He gestures at the park. You're feeding off his corpse, you know. This, he waves at the roses. It's obscene. A truck honks. Somewhere, a siren wails. Clara meets his bloodshot gaze. I'm not feeding, I'm composting. He flinches. She walks away, her spine rigid as a stalk of lavender. That night the city swelters. Clara sits on her apartment balcony, the seashell pendant warm against her chest. Mira's graduation photo glows on her phone, the girl in a cap and gown, grinning beside June, who's weeping openly. Clara's thumb hovers over an unread email. Sender Elias Hartwell. She deletes it without opening. Autumn arrives with a letter from the estate lawyer. The ink is smudged, the paper flimsy. Elias's will. You've been named executor. Clara reads it on the park bench she's dubbed Mira's perch, overlooking the serviceberry grove. The trees are aflame with crimson leaves, their berries plump and purple. A jogger pauses, panting. Nice garden. Thanks, she says. The letter joins the lavender in the compost. Thanksgiving is a quiet affair. Mira Skypes from her dorm room plastered with protest posters. I'm organizing a rent strike, she says, mouth full of cafeteria mashed potatoes. You'd be proud. Clara stirs her tea, steam fogging her glasses. I am. They talk politics, the weather, the Eden roses thriving in Mira's dorm window. No one mentions Elias. The dream comes in December. Clara stands in the conservatory, but the glass is gone, the roses strangling marble columns. Elias sits at the center, holding the empty locket. You never filled it, he says, his voice a rasp. I filled other things, she replies, and wakes to the sound of rain against her window. On Christmas Eve, Clara visits the shore. The beach is deserted, waves gnawing at the sand. She kneels, letting the surf lick her palms, and thinks of the ring she threw into the depths. Let the ocean have its ghosts. A dog barks, a boy chases it, laughing, his coat flapping like a crow's wing. Clara smiles. The chapter closes in spring. Clara's park is a tapestry of green, the Eden roses bowing under bees. A reporter interviews her for a fluff piece, microphone thrust in her face. What's your secret? The woman asks. Clara glances at the grove, where a plaque reads, in memory of roots unseen. Growth, she says, is a kind of defiance. The camera lingers as she walks away, her boots crushing fallen petals into the soil. Chapter 4. The garden is a riot of color when Mira returns. Clara kneels in the dirt, dividing hostas, when she hears the crunch of gravel. Her daughter emerges from the haze of August heat, her hair shaved on one side, a tattoo peeking above her collar. A sparrow in flight. Surprise, Mira says, dropping her duffel. I'm interning with root and stem. Clara stands, wiping her hands on her overalls. The gesture feels foreign. She's long since stopped trying to appear polished. Since when? Since I minored in urban planning. You inspired me, Mom. All that composting the patriarchy stuff. Mira grins, unloading a jar of homemade pesto from her bag. Nana June says hi. They eat on the patio, the air thick with the scent of grilled zucchini and nostalgia. Mira talks about campus protests, her girlfriend, Lila, a coincidence. Clara assures herself about the professor who called her a force of nature. Clara listens, her heart a taut string. When did the girl who hid behind dinosaur pajamas become this? The storm hits at midnight. Clara wakes to the sound of thrashing branches. The Eden roses are bent double, their petals whipping like sails. She grabs a tarp, but Mira's already there, her phone's flashlight cutting through the rain. They'll survive, she shouts over the wind. They're your roses. They secure the plants in silence, their hands brushing, a fleeting, familiar warmth. When the worst passes, they collapse on the porch, drenched and laughing. Mira's hair clings to her scalp, dark as seaweed. Remember the conservatory? She asks. Clara does. She remembers the glass, the thorns, the way the light fractured just before she left. It's gone now, she says. Demolished last year. Good, Mira says. Ugly thing. September brings a letter. Not from a lawyer this time, but a nursing home. Elias is coherent. He asks for you. Clara reads it on the train to the city. The countryside blurring into watercolor greens. The facility smells of antiseptic and microwaved peas. Elias is skeletal, his voice a dry leaf. You look well, he rasps. She sits, her chair angled toward the window. Outside, a magnolia tree sheds its petals. Mira's thriving, she says. She's fearless. A flicker of something pride. Regret crosses his face. Lila left, the baby, complications. Clara studies her hands, the calluses earned from trowels and time. I'm sorry. He shakes his head. You were always the roots. I never saw it. The admission hangs between them, fragile as the magnolia's bloom. Clara stands. Goodbye, Elias. Winter arrives with a frost so sharp it cracks the ground. Clara and Mira plant bulbs, crocuses, daffodils, a promise of spring. Mira's hands, now ink-stained and fierce, work alongside hers. You ever miss it? She asks. The estate? Clara digs deeper, unearthing a stone. I miss the roses, not the glass. On the solstice, they host a bonfire. The garden is crowded with Mira's friends, June's grandchildren, neighbors who've become family. Someone strums a guitar. Marshmallows char on sticks. Clara watches from the porch, a mug of cider warming her palms. Mira pulls her into the fray, laughing. Dance, Mom. The fire pops. Sparks spiral upward, brief and bright. Clara thinks of the conservatory's shattered panes, the ring swallowed by the sea, the letter crumbling in the compost. She dances. The final scene unfolds at dawn. Clara sits beneath the Eden roses, their branches gnarled but steadfast. A storm brews offshore, the horizon bruised purple. She touches the seashell pendant, its spiral worn smooth. Mira finds her there, sleepy-eyed and towels-haired. You're up early, thinking, Clara says. About roots, and how they grow anyway. Mira sits, her shoulder pressing against Clara's. The first raindrop falls, splattering the petals. They stay until the storm swallows the light, until the garden becomes a silhouette, until the roses glisten, defiant and alive.